Thank you. I'd like to congratulate you all for coming and thank everyone. The panel will be, actually, it's well planned. I gave everyone homework and reading materials. There will be exactly 5 minutes for questions at the end, but we'll start by presenting everyone. Then everyone will give a few words about how they see the legal challenges of Bitcoin, and then we'll have some very interesting questions. I assume that everyone here is in the advanced course because of all the talks we had, unlike the previous Bitcoin conference, which was very low level. So, I'll introduce people. First is Itzhak heads the international law group that has offices in London, Tel Aviv, Kassau, and other exotic places. He focuses on e-gambling, e-commerce, and offshore company formation. He's a good friend, and we had the pleasure to work against each other. It's really nice. Angus works from EY. He worked on various anti-money laundering programs and transaction monitoring systems in compliance departments of some of the largest financial institutions in the US and the world. And Yoram is from Ernst & Young Israel, Angus is also from Ernst & Young, which is the managing partner of Ernst & Young. That's the largest accounting firm in Israel. Yoram has a degree in economics and accounting and 20 years of experience in the field. So, the first question I want to ask everyone is, what do you see as the biggest challenge for Bitcoin in the regulatory field? And I'll start by saying what I see, and if I'm just plugging my lecture for tomorrow I'll do the MIT forum about it. It's crypto IPOs and crypto crowdfunding. While I see that most of the issues relating to Bitcoin anti-money laundering are, let's say, solved by way of practice, the only issue that remains open is doing a right public offering, going to people saying, I have a cool project, I need some money from you, I'll give you the money back whenever I get it, and you'll have dividends and interest and everything. That's still highly illegal. Being highly illegal, it's the only thing that technology will try to change, because if we already saw, it's going on all around the world. There's mining contracts, which are financial transactions all around. They're called financial transactions, but they go on even though they're illegal. Satoshi Dice did a crypto IPO. They were fined for like $50,000. It's nothing compared to how much they earned. And there's a lot of other interesting crypto crowdfunding projects like BitPieces, which I think it's quite inactive, but you can grab the source code. So Tal, what do you see as the biggest challenge for Bitcoin now?
So first of all, thank you guys, and good morning to everybody. What I think I will join what Jonathan said. All the idea of funding startups with bitcoins, whether it's crowdfunding or direct funding by investors using bitcoins, that's a challenge. We should come and see how the regulators around the world treats it. And currently, as Jonathan said, it's gray area. But that's a challenge that we'll see, I think, in this year more and more attended to. Now, another challenge that we see is regarding the taxation issue. If Bitcoin, how it will be taxed. We saw that in places like Australia and places like websites like Satoshi's Bedroom that was closed due to taxation issues. And I think that before we will tackle it all together, the tax aspects of Bitcoin, it will still have lots of dilemmas and challenges. And the third subject that I, as a lawyer, see with our clients is the element of how well it will be approved by regulators dealing with international e-gambling websites, iGaming websites. Now, this is, as pretty much many of you know, it's one of the bigger industries, growing industries over the internet. Now, once there will be a specific rule or regulation that accepts Bitcoin in many of those websites, I think there will be a dramatic change to a dramatic upgrade to many of those websites, and will still yet to be there.
Okay, Angus?
Firstly, I think I'd be very careful about saying that the regulation really is resolved for everything up to second generation technologies. I think as far as, to put it in perspective, a number of the banks that I've worked with, all of them have had compliance policies, all of them have had AML policies and procedures, KYC procedures. All of them have been under some sort of consent order or regulatory action for insufficient policies and procedures. The thing that the Bitcoin community, I think, needs to be aware of is that it's not a static process. It's not, I have AML and KYC, I'm good. I, for example, haven't seen a whole lot of active transaction monitoring to the level that the regulators look for in the banks. Now, it's not necessarily specifically asked for. However, the regulators will want companies to be actively looking at how they can be improving their detection of financial crime. So I think that's something that places should be conscious of. I think the second generation technologies coming out is a very interesting area because there isn't a whole lot of clarity around the regulations for those. The bit license.
There is. It's illegal. I mean, the question is, can I offer shares all over the internet? The answer is no.
Well, if the four of us were to have a partnership, a private partnership, just the four of us, I would think that if we wanted to organize some sort of profit sharing on some sort of blockchain, then that might be possible, right?
Four.
Yeah. Now, the thing is, but then you've got next counterparty, you can do that with that, but you can't necessarily restrict one of us from then going and on-selling to 200 others. So, that's an interesting area. The bit license in New York was unclear on some of these aspects, and at a recent talk where Lawsky was talking about the bit license, I asked him how they were looking to address this, and he openly admitted that they're not really sure. They're not looking to regulate non-currency second-generation protocols, but they're still working that out.
Okay, thank you. Yoram, what's the biggest challenge in your opinion?
Well, the risk of repeating myself after yesterday's panel, how low can you go to have 2 accountants and 2 lawyers in one panel? And I already spoke to you yesterday. But I think that, and I know it's controversial, but we have to embrace regulation. If you want Bitcoin to become highly populated and not the figment of our great minds putting together on this nice conference, talk about it as a great idea, has to be highly regulated. If we are waiting for the banking industry to lay down and say, come on, take hundreds of billions of dollars on daily fees that we collect and put Bitcoin as a technology that we can use all, we are dreaming. And if the banks are already looking to avoid us to being regulated just because then it won't be highly populated, we want to be regulated. So I would urge everyone to get regulation. I think the federal banks everywhere are very hesitant, as I talked yesterday, because of the risk of losing their monetary capabilities on a macro level. They will be very hesitant in allowing Bitcoin to become a currency. So everything we talked about, second generation, gambling, there is gambling going on with credit cards, with company in Israel. You know all the names. I won't mention some of them. So I don't think we should associate Bitcoin specifically with this. There are so many other options. If we want Bitcoin to prevail as an underlying major technology, it has to be regulated by the authorities, and there are steps slowly towards that. I actually like the idea of the Bitcoin being taxed because by being taxed, it's actually becoming part of the regulation, and they will have to address that. I don't mind whether it's currently a currency or an asset. Eventually, we will dictate how it works. So I'm looking forward for regulation as an accountant.
Okay, thanks. Now, the Bitcoin industry had quite a lot of events this year, or regulations, decisions, things like Dread Pirate Rabbits going and being indicted. So, in your opinion, 70 words per speaker, what's the Bitcoin event of the year in law or regulation?
I think the arrest of Charlie Shrem shocked maybe many of the people of the community, because Bitcoin was always controversial and all, but this kind of stuff, and from a very high-profile person and a person that we all really appreciate, I hope, it quite shocked, and that's one issue. The second issue, again, okay, sorry.
I'd agree. I'd say, I mean, look, a year in this industry is a lifetime, but I would agree that the Shrem arrest would be the biggest thing, because it was the first time that this industry was aware that, this is real. Uber or other tech startups can push regulation and can address that as it comes up. Financial regulation is a very different issue, and if you get it wrong, you can go to jail.
So I don't mind about his arrest. I've sent him some packages to the jail, and I hope he got them. Seriously, I think the biggest event of the last year was, Bill Gates 2 days ago announcement about Bitcoin. The fact that more and more people are embracing Bitcoin, and it's, if you ask me, 2 weeks ago it was the Federal Bank of Boston. If you ask me a month ago it was someone. As more and more people have an opinion about Bitcoin, that's the news we're looking for. I was asked the same question yesterday in the panel, and I said, actually, I think the Bitcoin event of the year is actually Wonga, which has nothing to do with Bitcoin. The concept of us living in a world which is unregulated, and this is how we like to think about it as, social democrats, this is the place to be, is because we think there is a great arbitrage between, institutes that have to be regulated and that does have a very massive cost structure versus a technology that doesn't have those impedance and as such can offer such a great relief of expenses. The fact that Wonga, which operated in a flash loan, unregulated business, got slapped by the FCA, have to write off 220 million pounds of loans that they gave to uncreditworthy lenders, actually says that whatever we think is unregulated is totally regulated, because when we touch the people, and if we will not touch the people, we are totally irrelevant. Because if we touch the people, we will be highly regulated. That goes back, for me, Wonga, who operated in an unregulated world, actually finding out it's totally regulated. I think it's the event of the year.
Okay, I actually disagree with. So the U.S. authorities are quite ambivalent on Bitcoin. We saw that the government actually sold forfeited Bitcoins in an auction this year from the Dread Pirate Rabbits case, and they allowed Bitcoin-based swaps last week from the CFTC. On the other hand, we see BitLicense and the IRS ruling, or pre-ruling, I don't know how you see it, or the financial services decisions. Do you think that Bitcoin, and Yoram will answer first because he'll respond, but do you think that remaining in a hybrid model where Bitcoin is both, and I wrote it in the article for the IDC Law Review, Bitcoin is both a particle and wave. Bitcoin is a hybrid model like in quantum physics that you only know what it is when you measure it. It's Schrodinger's cat of currencies. So do you think this model will continue going on, or will it change to be set specifically, or people say Bitcoin is Bitcoin, just leave it be like that? Yoram.
I think that I'm not a lawyer. Actually, basically, I'm a physics major. So if you know quantum physics, the only thing you want is Bitcoin not to be a hybrid, because quantum physics is a theory, and we don't want Bitcoin to be a theory. We want it to be something. This way or the other, as an accountant, I couldn't care less which one it is. As long as it is highly populated, something we can use on a daily basis in every node of a point of sale, and it can prevail. Governments will never, and I see a clear message in the United States and also in Europe. They will do everything to slow that down. They will do everything to slow that down because of two reasons. They want to be sure that there's 100% transparency, there's 100% sustainability of the system. We talked about it yesterday. As opposed to any other web, we cannot afford any glitches. It has to be one of those cases which is 100% foolproof. Money cannot get lost in the way, because then people lose credibility and lose their faith in the system, and then it's gone. It has to be 100%. So they're waiting it to be settled down. Two, they will never lose monetary capabilities, because this is the only tool they have together with fiscal. So if we want to slap them with monetary thing, we're going to have a different currency, they will slap with fiscal impedance. So we cannot think that the IRS is doing something that is not centralized from the point of view of the Federal Bank of the United States, which says we do not want it as a currency. So for us, by the way, put aside whether, you know, my Bitcoins are going to be worth $300,000 in a couple of years, hopefully, or $300, regretfully. That's a different story, you know. I put my money where my mouth is. I can give you my Bitcoin virtually, if you pay me for that. But seriously, it has to be regulated, and I think the technology is the important part, as a month ago the Federal Bank of Boston said so.
Angus?
The hybrid model that you're describing, I feel is a combination of two things. One, it's an extremely new industry. I mean, Mt. Gox was processing, what, 90% of activity, and that was in February. The second thing is the legislation you're describing is the US, which in itself is a bit of a strange market, and also partly why I have a job that, you know, when you've got more than 50 regulators in one country, you have all sorts of differing views. The industry at the moment has the opportunity to move a lot faster than the regulators on this, and you know, I think a lot of us here are here because we see the value of the blockchain. And I think it's powerful enough that we're in a position to propose regulation that can be stronger or more robust than what is currently there. And if the you know, if the community is able to get that forward ahead of what the regulators are saying, understand what the risks that the regulators are trying to protect the consumer from, then you know, I think there is an opportunity there. But it's going to take, I think it's going to still take a few years before the regulation is really settled.
Tal?
Well, I think the issue of legal tender is yes or no is some of the more interesting questions, even though it has theoretical aspects and practical aspects. I remember growing in the 70s and 80s in the United States, and we had in the whole $100 bill or $1 million bill picture, which was in the hallway, and there was written, "This note is not legal tender." So as if some kid will take this $100 million bill and use it in the grocery store. And you know, if you knew that what I'm speaking about, if the people grew there as well, you had the picture of yourself there in this dollar bill. And related to bitcoins, so bitcoins is not a legal tender, but it's legal. You know, if we're not speaking about Russia or specific countries, Bitcoin is legal in most of the jurisdictions. Now, for us to use it more and for more legitimate e-commerce websites to be able to use it more, I think that if there will be a more mandatory regulation, even to some kind of subsidiary of the Bitcoin, that will have a one-to-one projection between the Bitcoin holder and the owner, with proper KYC, like my friend Angus spoke about. And if you'll know that these funds were legitimately used by a specific person that we can identify, I think it will assist all this industry to move forward.
I'll just continue what Tal said. On my bills, I stamp not to be used for bribing politicians. So you can go and do that as well. It's more important than saying not to be legal tender.
Jonathan, I would like to propose a question to the panelists. So let's move forward into the future. We are 2020, and Bitcoin is legitimate everywhere. It's something that you can go to every store and use it, and everybody has a digital wallet that is totally secure with Bitcoin inside. Looking back from 2020, what were the critical regulations that went into place and where that made this possible?
So, if I had the power to see the future or to predict results, I wouldn't be in this field. We're Captain Hindsight, all of us. But something that would be a big enabler is treating Bitcoin as a currency. I know it's something that's impossible, but in the US, you do have some private currencies for closed communities, or you have other uses that are not, it's because they're not decentralized, but maintained by a small community, you can define them as currency, not as legal tender, but as currency. So that might be a big enabler, but that's the furthest I see. I can't see it any further.
Let me follow that thought. So you managed to say that Bitcoin became a currency through some sort of regulation, but in a perfect world of Bitcoin as a currency and us being able to do peer-to-peer transaction, there has to be a central point that, hold this for a minute, I need my hands as a good Jewish boy. So there's a pyramid of us down there, and there's a pyramid of suppliers up there, but there has to be someone in the middle when you have the two tops, actually monitors and make sure that there's...
You don't want me to plug my clients and say, well, there's this amazing startup that does this and this and this, and that enables...
Actually, this is exactly what I'm alluding to. There will have to be many companies, or actually one company, or one regulation, or one standard that will enable us on a global scale, peer-to-peer, to go through something that will make sure that if I'm paying him something, he's actually getting that, and I'm getting credited and he's getting debited for that. So this is where this is where Bitcoin actually worth more than gold. If you are there, and if you're one of the enablers to make that something that is interchangeable between, there isn't going to be any federal bank that's going to monitor that. That's the whole idea. There has to be a federal company, or not a federal company, or a private company that's actually going to dictate that.
Okay. Angus, you have any thoughts on that? What's the biggest Bitcoin enabler?
It's funny to talk about Bitcoin enablers on a regulation panel, but regulation is something that the regulators are going to do, and it's a matter of us here or people in the community working with the regulators to try to make that any regulation that goes in place that is to protect consumers, that it doesn't at the same time stifle innovation. So I'm not, to be honest, I don't think I have an answer for what regulation or what laws would be put in place that would necessarily enable that, except perhaps really anything. Which is why I'm personally for regulation to a certain extent. Is any regulation that gives your person on the street confidence that this new technology, this strange internet money called Bitcoin, is not going to immediately drop in value, or that an exchange is not immediate, or a wallet is not going to run off with your currency. Having that. Any sort of regulations or consumer protections that give the person on the street the faith that this is, you can trust this as much as you can trust your bank. And I know that in itself is a sort of controversial statement, but people leave $100 with their bank, they expect to be able to get $100 out, and currently at the moment the industry is not there.
Tal?
I think that if you look in 2020 and look behind, I think there's something that yet to happen in 2014, 2015, and hopefully in the next few years we'll see it. And we see it in other industries. And what I'm speaking about is more closer collaboration between industry and regulators. Now, if we want to see the analysis and comparison, if we're speaking about like the classic financial industries, like the Forex and the binary options websites, we know that there are places in Cyprus, the CISEC, the Cypriot Security Commission. Now, these guys come to events organized by the industry, and there was a very good dialogue between the people who had the CISEC and the lawyers and the industry, the websites, and there was a very big dialogue, a very nice dialogue. That's in the Forex and binary. In the gambling and the gaming, if you go to events in Las Vegas, or there was in April, last April in San Diego, there was the event of the IMGL, the International Masters of Gaming Law, and in the same hotel there was a convention of the International Association of Gaming Regulators, the IAGR. Now, these guys in the same hotel do two conferences together. Of course, people speak and exchange ideas.
And money.
Not in money. I'm laughing, but why money? You don't want to bribe the regulator, no. It's exactly what you said here. I'm sure you said it in humor. At the end of the day, if the people from the industry and the regulators will speak together, exchange ideas openly and freely in a transparent way, I think at the end of the day, this will, what I hope, will make a big change in 2020.
Yoram wanted to add some words,
I think that, and now I'm talking about from the point of view of State of Israel, this is for Tamar Zandberg. I think that we in Israel have a unique opportunity on a global scale to be in the forefront of adopting this sort of collaboration between the regulators and the industry. We can be, because of our innovative thinking and the way we look at money from a technical point of view, we can really be innovators from a technology point of view. And if we can create Israel as a beta site for developers, people talked about digital shekel yesterday. I don't care how we call it, whatever, because if we can exercise our capabilities, technical capabilities, and make Israel the place for people to come, not to Cyprus. Nothing that the Cyprus authority are doing is unique, but we are so afraid to do something like that. It can be regulated, highly regulated, overly highly regulated, totally transparent, whatever. But if we could do that, we can attract so much money and so much work and so much to be in the forefront of the fintech. I think this is really, really an opportunity for us in Israel to set a tone and become the Or Goyim light for the diaspora, actually it's Gentiles, but whatever. This is EY, that's seniority counts eventually. So this is my call for you, Tamar, actually to do something that Yoram Ariav and later Eugene talked about us being a hub for fintech. Chaim Shani in his times offered the grants for both Barclays and Citi to open R&D centers in Israel. I think we have a lot of people that really can fit in, and we can really make, and as the State of Israel can make a lot of progress, money in that field. That's my 5 cents.
A few months ago, there were two important decisions all around the globe. The one was in Australia, the second one is in the United States, and there's another one going now in the EU courts of the question on when you convert Bitcoin back to currency, is this, when you convert Bitcoin back to fiat currency, is that this defined as a transaction that has to pay value-added tax? And the question arises because Bitcoin might be considered as property, and in the same manner that I pay for bread, get bread, pay tax. I have to buy Bitcoin, I pay for Bitcoin, and the exchange has to pay value-added tax. This caused few businesses, both in Australia and in the United States, to adopt this decision as it's written black-letter law and decide that they're closing their business down. So my question to you is, do you think that regulating exchanges and adding in Israel, we're talking 18% overhead on the rate of Bitcoin when you change from fiat to Bitcoin, or when you transact on Bitcoin-based transactions. Do you think this will kill Bitcoin, and do you see a way to solve it without changing the regulation? Any interesting constructions that you might use?
Well, I think what happened regarding the recent, in September and October, recent decisions and their effects with VAT is something which I think it's really unserious. It's an unserious approach of governments to see Bitcoin as something which is subject to VAT, because VAT, if you add VAT and the other party cannot deduct this VAT, and it doesn't happen to be transparent, you just take 18% or 19%, 20% and make it as an overhead, and this just collapses your business. If all the profit is 2% or 5%, adding VAT is something which can really be harmful. So in these places, unless it will be reversible, I see it as a fatal thing.
You're a lawyer. Find a way to go around it. I mean,
we need to think about it. Yeah, you're right.
I mean, I think it is reversible. Actually, the Australian example you gave. I work in New York, but Australia's home. We are going through a Senate inquiry right now, and the head of the Senate inquiry commented yesterday that. He said Bitcoin is the future, and the banks should stop acting like ostriches, sticking their heads in the sand. They, guidance was released. Now we're doing an inquiry, and I think this is just part of the regulation, the regulations evolving. But I mean, with any of this, you have, you've always got what's come up a few times, regulatory arbitrage, where someone will put in. A country will put in that. Certainly in Europe, a country will put in that. It's pretty easy to just simply go over a border where it's less stifling. I think talking about really talking about anything killing Bitcoin at the moment is probably is a little premature. There's a lot more involved with this than just simply the currency and one regulation to add a tax on that. I think is it'll need more than that.
I couldn't agree more. I think if regulators or actually countries will impose things like VAT, that could be a huge problem. True that we can find a way to work around it, but when we do that, we understand that we actually, by finding those loopholes, the two things that will happen. One, regulators will eventually find this loophole, and it's I find yours, you find mine, back and forth, what we call in Hebrew, sorry Angus, the Arbinka effect. If you remember Chaim Topol in the film, it's the contra, re contra, until, you play back and forth. One thing. The second thing is that as when we find those loopholes, it prevents Bitcoin from becoming widely populated, because less and less people are willing to use those. We are willing to use those loopholes. Maybe agencies or big corporations are willing to do that, but the simple people on the street, that has a mom and pop shop, he won't go into that. That's too complicated for him. He want to get certainty. He doesn't want to think about it. When he gets a credit card, he knows the man is in the bank. That I don't want to think about it. If we come with the Bitcoin, it's a structure that goes through Lithuania and goes back and forth, and the money comes and you get it 2 days in advance. Later on, hey, you lost me. You lost me at the first hello. Yeah, you got me at the first hello. So that's my thought.
Okay, we have 9 minutes and 30 seconds for 2 questions from the crowd. A question is comprised out of 8 words, no more, with a question mark at the end. It does not contain the words, I think that. Think about it. You have 10 seconds to phrase your question, and then just raise your hand and the representative will come to you with a microphone.
You frightened the crowd, you know. Guys, I will protect you. Jonathan will not harm you physically.
Yeah,
you know,
they had to go through this and preparing for the panel. They got all the questions in advance, reading material. I'm really tough on that.
I want the guy in the corner that's now doing his email, Mr. Avi Zevi from Carmel Ventures, maybe the biggest investor in fintech in Israel, to enlighten the crowd, you know, with he thought as an investor, maybe the biggest investor in fintech in Israel in the last decade, or even more than that. What do you think? I ask you a question. What are you looking to in a company when you want to invest or not to invest in as your job as a managing partner of Carmel Ventures? Thank you, Avi. It might cost me my client relations, but hey.
We are still exploring the space, but we are actively looking into potentially investing in the space. What I'm mostly interested in is actually solutions to actually connect the traditional banking systems with the Bitcoin or the Bitcoin technology, and actually to interconnect between the two systems. So everyone that has a solution there, I would be more than willing to hear about that. And definitely everything else that has more than just a point solution, but a more universal type of solution. Thank you, Yoram. You're doing great PR for Carmel.
Any other volunteers who want to be questioned or yeah.
Can we up the word limit to 10 words?
My question is the easy place to regulate Bitcoin is where paper money touch the digital money? Is that the easy place to put the regulator in this point?
Is that the easiest place to regulate? To regulate? Technically, as in technologically wise, yeah, probably. And you know, at the moment, the regulators are, you know, they're focused more on the money side versus the digital side. But
yes,
yeah, the interface between when the money exchange from physical money to the digital, that's the classic way for putting the regulation there, so putting the KYC there. The same guy who is going to the change and want to buy more than 50,000 shekels, or I don't know what is the limit there, then the exchange owner asks him to show his ID. That's exactly the place where, when the regulation will be what we expect it to be, there will be the places on these interfaces, on these points of time, there it will be.
I'll actually say the other way around. Anti-money laundering rules, especially in Israel, were formed to protect people from banks. In Israel, the whole anti-money laundering authority and legislation came after people found out that banks participated in money laundering. So the AML procedure was meant to protect us from the abuse of power through there, not just from the people on the street coming with cash. Regulating cash is a poor decision. Israel decided to try to limit cash transactions at all, but going digital is nice, but if you try to regulate the point of conversion from fiat currency to digital currencies, you'll be in a problem, first because people barter, and I can provide services for Bitcoin, so there's no cash transaction there. And that might be the biggest form of transactions if Bitcoin is successful. And when you do manage a financial institution, then it's easier to launder money even though you're compliant.
As much as I like the idea of what we call Vision 2020, in which we do transaction only in Bitcoin, it will have to become gradual, because we're now using fiat currencies to do that. So there will be a change between fiat to all digital. I think that what your point is the most important one. For many years, until we are only doing things in Bitcoin, the point of conversion between fiat to digital, between what we call analog and digital, is going to be the point where regulation will be, and most of the money will be made. Because this is where the security issue is going to be arised, and this is where the authentication is going to come. This point is where the money lies, and this is what Avi just said. We are looking to see where you are combining the old world with the new world. Because it's going to take a lot of time, and if we don't get this right, we will never be able to get to all digital.
So we have 3 more minutes. So if someone has a short question with short answers, 7 words now, we'll go for it. Otherwise, we'll have concluding comments, 1 minute per each speaker. Wait for the microphone. The guy will come to you. No, the recording.
Is there a legal case for a Bitcoin holder to be discriminated versus a cash holder?
Legally, yeah, because Bitcoin is not legal tender, and I'm not obligated to receive it. That's the question. Can I force someone to accept Bitcoin instead of cash?
No. Can you like sue the government for not allowing something with Bitcoin that you can do with cash?
To file a lawsuit, I'm sure there's 60,000 lawyers in Israel. Yeah. Someone will take this as a, as a precedent to court, but not us. Not us. No.
Governments have immunity, whatever. So 40 seconds of concluding remarks from each speaker. Or
was another question in the back?
Yeah. Why is Israel the perfect place to become the next Bitcoin center?
Because we have the best bars in the world. We have the coolest parties. And when you incorporate your startup here, you also get the best lawyers.
And the best accountants.
Yeah.
No, I think that... and this is now my Israeli hat, not my professional, someone that have been working in the high-tech industry from its early stages. I think that the quality that we possess as people is to think out of the box and combine interdisciplinary capabilities and bring innovation. I think that we should always be in the forefront of technology. We will never be able to compete with the Huawei's and the Cisco's and the Microsoft and the Apples of the world. We won't create a new iPhone in Israel. But we are always in the forefront of technology, things that need us to bring a lot of capabilities into one place. This is one of the places where we have a lot of experience because there are so many immigrants that came from abroad, from mainly the States, that have financial expertise in doing everything you can imagine. That if we combine those capabilities, and look how successful both Barclays and Citi were in getting the people to work in their R&D centers, and how successful they are, looking to grow them, and other companies, I can tell you, are coming to do that. So I think if you look into the future, and when we talk about it, we think that the fintech as a market is going to be 20 times bigger than internet today, just because look at the amount that the banks are rolling from only fees. Understand that when new technology is going to touch the banking industry, there's a lot of money to be made. We think that we in Israel, as a people, we have the capabilities and the market is there, and you don't need to be in the market in a totally digital world. So this is why I think we should be in the forefront of that.
Thank you very much. We still have 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 seconds to go. It's been a pleasure, and we're open for questions afterwards and break. Thank you.